Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out All the Gods Are Dead Act 1, a Warhammer 40k horror story for mature audiences only apparently. A Vox in the Void, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, this was recommended to me over on the Discord by Alter Voss. Big thank you to you, sir. I appreciate the recommendations as always. That, mature audiences only. I don't really, know what we're in for with this one. Obviously, given the context of 40k, we hear some pretty horrific shit usually, and it's typically for mature audiences only. I would say, in a sense, at least like some of the more like grotesque things for sure. But obviously at the same time, none of his other videos are like labeled as such, to my knowledge, at least like from what I've seen of him. So man, I don't really know what we're in for this time, but I'm kind of fucking spooked out, right now. I don't really know what we're in for. It kind of caught my eye. I saw this one. I was like, for sure, this is only from Vox in the Void. Holy shit, we gotta see this one for ourselves. You know what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen? So yeah, guys, leave a like if you enjoy the content, subscribe for more content from me, and leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Come join our Discord. Gotta plug the Discord. Come join our Discord. Be a part of the discussions. It's great interacting with you all there, and I love seeing that Discord grow. So come join it for sure. And yeah, obviously, big shout out to Alter Voss for, the recommendations for the videos, and all of our members, the Hastati and the Triarii out there, Paralyzed, Tortoise. Big shout out to you, sir. I appreciate you as always. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day. So yeah, guys, without any further delay, let's get right into this video, because man, Vox in the Void, fantastic work usually. I don't know what this one's about. Maybe, can we read the description a little bit here? Act 1, the Temple of Flesh and Stone. I don't know what that is. I don't know, flesh and stone. I mean, obviously, could be something chaos, could be something dark elf related, could even theoretically be something fucking Mechanicus related for all I fucking know, man. Now, at this point, like the Mechanicus, they do some pretty rancid shit, and so do the Imperium, but like the Mechanicus, dude, I don't know. So it's, I guess we'll find out, eh? I'm sure there'll be a lot of context. As always, I'm gonna be writing stuff down for these Vox in the Void videos. Again, I love his narration. I think he does a fantastic job. And obviously, as well, I don't know what the fuck just happened there with my shit. Obviously, as well, you have to think about a lot of his stories typically, you know what I'm saying? You can't just take them at their base value. You really have to usually think about a lot of these Warhammer 40k stories. Not a lot of them are, what's the word I'm looking for? Just laid out, you know what I'm saying? Like, you really do have to think, and I love these types of stories. So yeah, guys, let's get right into it. We're gonna turn captions on, of course.
From within the hidden, suffocating crawl space of his home, Solomon wept as he listened to the gurgling, wet noises of his wife's labored breaths above. The raider warband gathered around her ravaged body like excited schoolchildren, enthralled by a teacher's storybook.
Holy shit. Okay, so we're we're starting off the deep end here, ladies and gentlemen. Holy shit. Okay, yeah. The raider warband. Okay. His wife's ravished body. This. Yikes. Okay, mature audiences only. I'm starting to see where this is going. This is going to be a pretty fucking rough one. I can already kind of tell, man. Obviously, his tone, too. Again, Vox in the Void is a fantastic fucking voice actor. I vibe with him super fucking hard. I'm not going to lie. The tone of this already, you can tell, man, we're in for it. So, holy shit,
Wife's labored breaths above. The raider warband gathered around her ravaged body like excited schoolchildren, enthralled by a teacher's storybook. As a final prayer to the god emperor fell from her lips, Solomon cowered spasmodically as raucous, pleasure-filled laughter burst from the group above. Floorboards moaned from the collective weight of the unseen invaders, followed by the brutal sounds of hatchets violently hacking through flesh and into the rotting wooden flooring.
Damn.
The evisceration of his beautiful Adamina went on for hours. A carousel of reveling groups came and left, each bringing new tools of death and terror to the hab. each one more eager to be part of something special. Solomon lay on the damp, blackened dirt within the tiny crawl space, his body squirming as he watched with revulsion through a freshly gouged hole in the wood. He couldn't see much of anything, shadowed forms at best, but what he could hear made bile rise in his throat. The sound of bone being removed from opened flesh, the crack of barbed whips shadowed by ecstatic whines, the wet slap as something was peeled free and tossed to the ground.
So, raiders, I don't know if these are like pirate raiders and they're just like, you know, fucked up, or if they're just like, if they're actual like chaos, like raiders in a sense. They said raiders. I don't know, man. It's hard to say. Obviously, if they're just like, you know, fucking mega degenerates, I mean, like that's not, it's not far off from what we hear about some of the hive cities, right? For sure. I like the underworld gangs, very fucking brutal shit. So perhaps this is something kind of the same as that. I'm not too certain, you know. Very, very interesting. Not interesting in the sense of like, holy shit, but it's like, you know, what are these guys? Where do they come from? What are they, you know? And obviously this is a fucking very brutal story already. We're getting into some pretty mean details for sure. And like the context, obviously his wife is getting eviscerated. I'm guessing he's in hiding, you know, just gonna go out there and die too, in a sense, you know. So it's a rough situation, man, for sure.
During a rare lull in the celebrations, Solomon had to bear witness as his braying work mule Bastien was led into the habitation and became a welcomed addition to the debauched festivities. In amongst the disembodied low Gothic filth that filled the hab, spoke unspeakable and nightmarish tongues, a guttural language that simultaneously personified fear and desire. The words rasped and intertwined with the orgy of blood and pleasure, urging the desecration to continue. Soon all other sounds were drowned under the lilting words of those
very much sounds like chaos.
Pleasure remained a constant, a rising crescendo of madness that reached into Solomon's consciousness and flayed his humanity. The language took his mortal sight and replaced it with a glimpse of a world beyond the material plane of man.
Jesus.
More of the blackened words began to take life in Solomon's mind, as hues of pink smoke and flame swirled and licked within his imagination. Upon a towering temple of oscillating flesh and marbled stone stood the naked form of his beloved Adamina, her slender fingers beckoning for his touch, as a harem of sexless, smiling terrors of the warp adorned the high steps, dancing and writhing at her sides. It was hard for Solomon to tell if some of the consummating entities were separate or conjoined in nature,
Wow.
long appendages appearing to fold and bind into one another. Suspended from chains on impossibly vast, jewel-encrusted platforms, great corpulent figures draped in rose-tinted silks lay feasting on platters of roasted groks.
So obviously this is, I'd have to say this is probably Slanesh, right? Chaos, god of desire, right? In a sense, desire, temptation, fucking all that you have, right? You're seeing, you know, your wife that was just brutally killed. This isn't a vision, I'm assuming. And just the presence alone, it's enough to like get into his fucking mind and try to tempt him towards chaos. I'm assuming that's what this is. That's like a visualization of what this is. Yeah, it's fucked. You know what I'm saying? That's fucked. Because like literally they're using obviously his wife. That's the first motivator. Endless food, bounty. You know what I'm saying? Endless temptation at your disposal. You just need to come take it. You know what I'm saying? You could have your wife back even, you know, if that's what you want. But fuck, man, this is brutal already. Wow.
Some resembled gigantic babies or affected children as they babbled and rolled on their backs, defecating into bone pots as they squealed for more sustenance.
Wow.
Others had surgically inserted feeding pipes sprouting from their guts, their obedient slaves working in tandem to lift heavy containers and pour a thick paste directly into their distended bellies.
Wow.
Palsied serfs diligently attended to their obese lords, forever filling wine glasses for the gluttons to wash down eternal mouthfuls of steaming meats, succulent vine fruits, and chirping small beasts. Their frantic eating was causing the platforms to list and sway, the great chains threatening to snap under the weight of the revelry. The atrophied servants, losing what balance their skeletal legs had, spilled their wine vessels to the riotous amusement and fat-handed applause of their grotesque masters. Solomon was transfixed, a cold paralysis claiming his aged limbs, holding him prisoner to witness what was to come. From behind Adamina, bronzed fire pits vented flames skyward, illuminating the nightmare beyond.
Wow.
Upon a polished onyx and silver throne sat a monstrous creation of chaos. Its lithe body undulated with each long breath as it sat there, watching. Its eyelids had been removed, sockets punctured by gilded hooks that pulled the surrounding skin taut, to remain in a permanent state of literal wide-eyed wonderment.
Wow.
As the chaos monster regarded Solomon's unexpected arrival at the steps of its temple, it raised its gnarled hands, rhythmically fingering the air like a puppeteer may command a marionette. Solomon felt drawn towards the dais, an invisible childlike grip taking his hand and leading him upwards, closer to his cherished Adamina and the monster that now stood behind her with the height of 3 men.
Damn.
An immense, shark-toothed grin formed as the demon slowly tilted its gargantuan head, reminding Solomon of how a doting father might gaze longingly at his child during their first.
So maybe this isn't a vision so much as it is like they did a fucking like ritual or some shit, and then this is like the result of that ritual that they perhaps did, right? It's hard to say. Somebody let me know the specifics. I obviously don't know the intricacies of fucking chaos yet. You know what I'm saying? And the warp and all that. Just what's possible out there. So perhaps he was actually, in a sense, transported, or maybe just due to the vile nature of what was going on at the time, that allowed, you know, chaos as an actual entity to spawn. And now this is the result of that. Perhaps. I'm not sure, right? Somebody let me know the specific details on that, though. This is very fucked. You know what I'm saying? This I can see why there's now a mature audiences only on this for sure. But you know, it's the nature of chaos. This is literally like hell demons, for lack of a better word, that we're dealing with, right? So like, holy shit, you know.
Wood steps. All terror dissipated as he reached the dais and stared into the oceanic blue eyes of his wife. The kindness of her soul ever calming even in this dark illusion.
Wow.
She remained motionless as he approached, her mouth a pursed smile, goose flesh covering her exposed body. He knew she was truly dead.
Yeah.
He knew her corpse lay hollowed and violated in inescapable reality. He knew this wasn't his Adamina, yet still he desired to hold her close, to feel her chest rise and fall as her heart quickened, to lay with her one final time before this vision of madness would surely dissolve back into the awful truth that he was utterly alone, trapped inside a cruel space and waiting to be discovered and torn asunder. Solomon's fear returned. The demon now crouched, its legs bent backward at the knees, as its long neck stretched around the lovers like a snake might encircle their prey. Overlapping rows of shark teeth, obsidian black in the light of the fire pits, chattered and pulsed, retracting and extending through fleshy gums. Solomon noted with horror the worm-like tongue that darted around its maw with a self-preservation and life completely separate to its host, desperately avoiding the razored teeth and being bitten in two.
Wow.
The grinning creature filled its lungs before slowly exhaling a rumbling, inhuman breath, a twisted signal horn, organic and monstrous that seemed to reverberate off the hidden boundaries of the dream.
So, obviously, yeah, this is the oldest fucking ploy in the book that fucking a demon, let's say, could pull on somebody. Obviously that of temptation, right? Like, here's your dead loved one, you can be with them, and then the instant like you feel desire to be with them, and they've got you, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like if he falls for that, he's going to succumb to chaos then, rather than not, at a minimum, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's in his situation, it's like, it's understandable for sure, you know what I mean? It's fucked, you know. And obviously you have no fucking idea what's going on either, right? Like, what you're seeing around you would be so fucking alien, you know what I mean? Like, it would be so fucking strange, like the feelings you'd have there, euphoria you would have there, you know. It would probably be like being on the biggest fucking like acid trip of your life. Not that I would know, right? But that's what I would probably akin it to, because you're like, everything there is like, it doesn't make fucking sense. You know what I mean? It's the warp you're dealing with here, right? So it's like, fuck. Yeah, man. Let's see where this goes. Obviously, we're only 8 minutes in here. I'm interested to see where this goes and how this ends. This is obviously only Act 1 too, which makes me think that, like, how many acts are there, you know?
Solomon fixed his eyes on the rictus, unblinking form of Adamina. Tenderly, he ran his hands through her greying hair, contrails of coalescing colors echoing each fingertip as time itself slowed and the firelight dimmed around them. He could feel this dark facade was approaching its finale, and yearned for his beloved to reciprocate his affections. She finally responded to Solomon's touch. She pushed into his caress, and he felt her hands questing south. And as she retrieved a glistening serrated blade from between her sex and carved her breasts from her slender frame, she pressed her lips against his and laughed. A sudden gust of warm air left an acrid, infused perfume in its wake, and the hellscape of flesh and indulgence vanished, leaving only a flickering candlelit visage of Adamina's blood-soaked hand, inviting Solomon to her eternal embrace.
Yeah.
Back inside the confined, airless crawl space, Solomon raised an arm in response to the vision, pushing against the ceiling with splayed fingers. He clenched his outstretched hand into a balled fist, feeling his fingernails dig into the flesh of his palm, before sinking into the dark of unconsciousness.
Wow. I'm surprised I didn't discover him then. But who knows? Like, that's the thing too. Who knows how much time is truly passing while he's like in this vision state? You know what I'm saying? If it's his mind purely in the warp, or if it's his physical body is there too, right? That's what we have to wonder. Because if that's the case, obviously time is benign in a sense in the warp, you know what I'm saying? What we've seen, you could be gone for a couple hours in the warp and it's fucking 1,000 years later by the time you come out, you know what I'm saying? In a sense, kind of like what we saw in like Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, for example, right? Where, you know, they come out 800 years later and it's like, what the fuck, you know? Katie is gone, like, you know, it's a shock, right? So yeah, very interesting. Like, we'll have to see. Like, again, I think I need some more context on this one, guys. So for sure, help me out on this one for sure. You guys are gonna have to explain this one to me a little bit more, okay?
He awoke to the rhythmic patter of dripping liquids, viscous bodily fluids that had been pooling and soaking through the floorboards for hours were now beginning to ooze through the gaps in the hardwood, spattering into the dirt and across his prone body. There were no other noises within the habitation as another globule of mixed excretion dewed on the wood above his eyes. No accursed dialects, no grunts or howls of ecstasy, no tools of torture, scraping or cutting, no screams or cries for mercy. Nothing. Solomon turned onto his belly, pulled himself onto his elbows, and slowly inched towards the small false floor in the center of the confined space. Raw-boned rats, disturbed by his movements, now raced across the sodden earth, the braver and more hungry ones returning to opportunely nip at his skin as he passed.
Wow.
Sucking in a wheezing breath, Solomon gradually pushed the concealed panel upwards and peered over the lip of the square hole. The habitation was dark and empty of life, yet a permeating sweet stench remained, as if a slaughterhouse had been bathed in lavender oils. Solomon grimaced as he struggled to pull himself through the open hatch, his aged arms weak from months of starvation, barely managing to haul his weight from the hole. Only when Solomon got to his knees.
It's interesting there. They just said months of starvation. So again, was he physically in the warp, or was maybe he's just on a poor planet, perhaps, where, that's just a commonplace thing to be starved. You know what I'm saying? That's totally possible too. I could imagine for sure. Or was he just physically under there, like away for months? You know what I'm saying? I have to keep watching.
His aged arms weak from months of starvation, barely managing to haul his weight from the hole. Only when Solomon got to his knees, quietly replaced the floor panel, and had an uncensored look at what used to be his family home, is when the madness truly began.
Yeah.
On the west wall, the headless carcass of their pack mule stood upon two legs in a parody of human gait, pinned in place with long spears through its legs and barrel.
Yeah.
A crudely daubed face was smeared on the rockcrete above the severed neck of the beast in thick red paint. The childlike artwork bore a resemblance to the grinning demon Solomon had seen within the vision.
It was a vision, okay.
Half dressed in the garish uniform of the renegade warband, was dead, mutilated atop a great wooden breaking wheel. Each limb was bound and broken to the archaic device of pain, yet his scarified face remained contorted and frozen in the throes of climax. He enjoyed it, thought Solomon.
Yeah,
as he
these people
edged
are
his way
sick.
around the wheel, trying to keep upright through the wet mess at his boots. He looked to the fireplace, where his wife had been butchered and used for entertainment since the early hours of dawn, but there lay no remains. Not even a spot of dried blood touched that area of the habitation. Just stacks of melting tallow candles and emptied leather wineskins.
Wow.
Solomon almost allowed himself some relief that he wouldn't have to stare upon his dead wife's face and atone for his cowardice.
Yeah, that's fair in a sense, but it's not even like cowardice, man. Like, again, I don't know the build up to that. Why wasn't his wife under the floorboards with him? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's interesting for sure. How was he there and his wife wasn't? I don't know the build up to this. Like, was he a coward? Maybe, but again, what are you gonna do by yourself? You know what I'm saying? Like, it would be more likely you just would have been you would have met the same fate exactly, right? So yeah, that's a hard one though. But like, obviously survivor's guilt. Like, what do you do in that situation,
His dead wife's face and atone for his cowardice. Where had they taken her? Oh, holy God, Emperor, he didn't want to imagine. No time to stop. No time to grieve. If he wanted to keep his soul, he must move, find provisions and move. The cupboards were bare, yet this was nothing unusual during the enemy occupation that racked the agricultural world of Artham. All stockpiled food rations and harvests had been reserved for the local guard forces in their war of attrition with the marauding Traitor Guard Legion.
Right, so marauding Traitor Guard Legion. So they are chaos. They are heretics, and this is an angry world that was under assault, so probably already facing starvation. I understand now. That adds a bit more context for sure. That makes sense.
The local guard forces in their war of attrition with the marauding Traitor Guard Legion, known across the Vox castes as the Scourge of Adavan. Civilian refusal to contribute a weekly quota of personal foodstuffs resulted in an immediate sentence of conspiracy to aid the ruinous powers.
Wow.
A trial that would find you and your entire family line handed over to the local Imperial-funded purgers of heresy.
Damn.
Solomon cursed his world's decree as his panicked search for food continued in vain, finding the pantry emptied of their last remaining recycled water and dried starch bars. His thirst was so consuming, he became tempted to drain the last drops of wine from the abandoned leather canteens of the renegades. But sense prevailed as he pictured the tainted sputum that formed at the bottom of the wineskins.
Yeah, I wouldn't drink that.
He remembered that he had taken a small flask of rationed water into the farm the previous day. A flask he had only quarter finished before making a wordless promise in the fields that he would give the rest to Adamina upon his return, along with the handful of stunted root vegetables pulled from their dying garden. He released a strangled yelp as he retrieved his farm jacket from the wardrobe, reached inside the lined pocket, and touched the cold metal of the flask within.
Wow.
He unscrewed the lid, and holding the flask in two hands took great, desperate gulps, finishing the precious drink in seconds. In the other pocket he found the vegetables, which he ate without hesitation, instantly wishing he had saved some water as he chewed through the frost-hardened crops and gritty dirt that covered them. He slumped onto the cot, his vision blurred from welling tears as the memory of the last night appeared in his mind's eye.
Yeah, that'd be awful. And obviously, again, I don't imagine the guard or anyone else would have much sympathy for like the average civilian on a world like this. You know, and obviously if they're held up in like the bigger cities, you know, taking defensive postures, they're obviously not out there caring for the common man in like an undefended village, for example, right? Like they're completely defenseless to what's going on. So yeah, that's a very, very rough situation, man. Like this, yeah, this is definitely a lot more serious of a story for sure. I think anything involving chaos probably could be this level, but maybe not. Who knows, right? I'm not sure if all stories related to chaos are detailed as such as this, but maybe, right? Obviously, I'm not entirely too sure. This is a pretty fucked one, though. I'll be honest. This is pretty brutal. It's good though. It's a good story.
Adamina was now too weak to lift her head from the pillow, yet the sickness that consumed her and continued to worsen every day could do little to destroy her spirit. Her internal organs had been steadily failing for the last 6 months.
I see.
And no medicines helped to alleviate the pain, but at least she could still smile. And when her husband returned from his field work, routinely sat beside her on the cot and ran his rough fingers through her thinning hair, she smiled. She smiled as Solomon whispered to her about his day, even managing a dry laugh when he regaled her on how 2 infant sons of a young tillerman had shadowed him all of the evening, hiding in the tall grass and calling him names that would make a voidsman blush. And as they lay together in silence, her husband nestled behind her, feeling his slowing breaths on her neck as he fell in and out of sleep.
So this is an interesting perspective change. Obviously now we're seeing the view of the wife, what happened. So this is going to be fucked. First off, I just want to, you know, let that be known. I'm expecting some really brutal shit here. Also, obviously we're going to see what really truly happened. Obviously she was sick. I'm sure she wasn't able to move. Perhaps something of that sort. We're gonna have to see here what happened, but yeah, this is fucked up, you know?
She smiled. But the smile would disappear forever when the village-wide alarm blared into terrific life. A staccato, electronic scream that wailed and echoed off the complex of farm buildings and empty grain silos. Bucking draft animals whinnied and kicked at their stable doors as the pitching klaxons increased in volume. They were here. Solomon leapt from Adamina's side and pawed at a floor panel in the living quarters. With a dull metallic click, the false floor came free, exposing the thin passageway that ran the length of the unit. Muffled cracks of approaching lasfire joined the cacophony of rising sirens, and he could hear field workers racing to defend the village, antique laslock rifles barking in their hands. The next minute played out like a repeating gallery of dread and death in Solomon's memory.
Wow.
A furious banging of fists at the farm hab door. An angered plea for Solomon to take up arms in the name of the God Emperor. The same voice bleating as searing lasbolts punched fist-sized holes through the door and burnt into the opposite wall, filling the room with rock dust and the smell of burnt
Come
ozone.
fight with us.
Hooting laughter. Screaming. An obscene dirge of discordant sack pipes and fife.
Wow.
Adamina, roomy-eyed as he attempted to cradle her out of the cot. The crash of enemy weapon stocks hammering on the door as hinges and locks splintered under their blows. The look upon her face as his thin arms buckled, dropping her to the hard ground. The look upon her face when he left her in a withered heap to scramble towards the open hatch in the hab's foundations. The look upon her face when he climbed inside and replaced the panel behind him, leaving her to the mercy of the murderers that now crashed through their door.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. You know what I mean? That's a fucking difficult one. Obviously, yeah, that was definitely an act of cowardice for sure. But like, holy shit, you have to heat of the moment. You know, I can't. I'm not gonna sit there and call him just an utter coward. You have to remember what these fucking things are, right? Like what exactly you're dealing with here. But yeah, that is your wife. That is the woman you love. You know what I mean? At the same time, so that's a fucking difficult situation to be put in. You know, I'm not gonna fucking hate the character because he did that. Obviously, I'm gonna think a little bit less of him, but again, I can't fully like blame him in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Literally, you hear banging at the door. Hey, get your ass out here and come fight, and then fucking a fist goes through the dude banging on your door and through the door itself. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I'll get right out there, man. Like, yeah, we've totally, right? Like, no, fuck that. It's no, you're done. You know what I'm saying? There's no fighting that. You're not gonna fight back, especially this dude. It sounds like an elderly couple, right? He sounds very old, frail, starved. They both do, right? So like, yeah, you know. He sounds like he's probably in his 50s, 60s, maybe older. I'm not too sure. Obviously, very rare for somebody to hit that age. But on an angry world, you know, if you're not facing conscription, I guess that's possible. I don't see why it necessarily wouldn't be, you know. But yeah, rough situation, man.
Looking at his gaunt reflection in the tableside mirror, Solomon remained catatonic as the dark memories subsided. A man that he no longer recognized stared back from the smeared glass. It wasn't the unkempt beard, skeletal cheekbones, sunken eyes, or guttering candlelight that made him unrecognizable, but something deeper within. His soul had been irreversibly altered, diseased by self-preservation. He had become a loathsome wretch who could sacrifice the ones he loved for one more day in this cursed universe. In the corner of the room, a billhook machete glistened in the dancing candlelight. A gift left by the dread enemy in their excitement to further their advance through the neighboring towns, no doubt. Solomon slowly stooped and picked up the blade, feeling the weighted hilt in his palm as he traced the tip of the knife lengthways down his arm, rehearsing how he would open his veins and join Mina in the Emperor's light. It was only when he suppressed his breath to slide the blade into his wrist that he realized he lacked the fortitude to take his own life. It was also in this moment he discovered the sound of wheezing intakes of breath were not his own.
Interesting.
Standing at the full height of the dark doorway was an abomination in guard uniform. The armored plate stretched over its massive frame and refashioned in the tasteless pink and purples of their chaos god. A bronzed pauldron was attached to its right shoulder, with thick threaded bolts that screwed into the flesh. Its features were hidden behind an iron mask, a visage of a leching cherubim exquisitely embossed on the faceplate. Around its sinewy neck, lustrous golden jewelry hung heavy over its rattling chest. With an excited burble, the cherub-faced enemy lumbered into the candlelit room, its arms outspread, gesturing in spastic, deaf-mute grunts for Solomon to continue with his self-murder. The grotesque cherub was horrifically injured, its abdomen split from stomach to groin. The great rend of fat and muscle retched tar-black blood and knotted intestines onto the ground with every thudding step. But still the monster advanced. Solomon's body failed him once again as he voided his bladder. Death had finally arrived.
Yeah, I'd probably shit myself too if I saw that.
Hulk.
Can't blame him for that
The
one.
wounded traitor tripped clumsily as he closed on Solomon, stumbling over a rope of its own entrails that bulged and burst out the sides of his heavy boot. With a falsetto shriek of agony, the giant fell and impaled itself onto the machete in Solomon's hand. Warm clots of gouting blood pumping as the blade's edge punctured effortlessly through the exposed flesh of the throat.
Wow.
The Chaos Traitor knelt motionless at the farmer's feet, frothing gore and spit bubbling over the blade as the machete burrowed deeper into its regurgitating windpipe. With an appalling tearing sound, the traitor's head lolled backwards, barely held onto its wide shoulders by a flap of skin at the nape.
Damn.
In the Emperor's name, I got you, bastard, Solomon thought, with a semblance of bravery as he stared into the dead, dilating eyes within the iron mask.
This guy's gonna maybe turn into a monster, like not like an actual chaos monster. I mean, but he might actually turn into a fucking like beastly warrior somehow. Like, I don't know. Maybe he'll fucking die in agony. Like, that's also possible. He is just a fucking dude, like an old dude by the sounds of it. But like, I don't know. Maybe he's been imbued by something and he's gonna turn his fucking like hatred around or something. You know what I'm saying? His like agony around on the people who did it rather than himself. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, just a thought.
The village alarms had long been silenced. Yet another sound of sirens carried in the night. No, not sirens. A mourning communal moan. The farmer, with the gore-encrusted billhook still held tight in one hand, strained as he pushed the dead brute aside, the body finally thudding sideways into an heirloom chest before crashing to the ground. On his hands and knees, he crawled through the adjacent room, and with his heart thundering in his chest, peeked from the splintered doorway of his home. Advancing through the low, ghosting mist of the outlying cropland were hundreds of casualties of war. Solomon saw flashes of pink armor in the ebbing light of the lantern-lit procession.
I see.
At the center of the march, a chorus of guard and civilian prisoners wailed from inside metal cage sarcophagi that lay stacked high on beast-drawn carts. Hunchbacked standard bearers of the Lord of Excess flanked the assembly, their heretical banners flourishing in the night wind to the thrumming of a drummer's march. A pained and rasping call from an unseen hornsman stopped the caravan near the outfarm at the edge of the village. Hooded lackeys cowered under the lash of a foul and giggling insect thing as they fetched Hessian sacks and ragged tarps from a looted Imperial Trojan that belched forward on promethium fumes.
So obviously, I'm guessing this is going to be like a mass sacrifice in a sense. Like they just rounded up all the prisoners of war in a sense, and they're just going to fucking come and execute them in the most brutal of ways to their god. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Again, what do you do? Like, yeah, again, you're one fucking guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck. You know, I guess we'll see. This one's actually, it's only got a couple minutes left.
Giggling insect thing as they fetched Hessian sacks and ragged tarps from a looted Imperial Trojan that belched forward on promethium fumes. Bawling prisoners were now being uncaged and paraded, the healthier ones taken aside and butchered for the pot, whilst others were crucified for sport. These were the lucky ones. They were setting up camp. No escape now. The few infantry troops that weren't tending to their injuries or indulging other needs formed a scouting party and moved quickly into the village. They soundlessly made their advance towards the homesteads, with a frightening proficiency for followers of the arch-enemy, their guard training not completely tainted by the ruinous powers. They stabbed into ashen hay piles with bayoneted las rifles, one of the heretics cheering as he ripped his weapon free of a pile of straw, the writhing body of a young boy on the end of his sticking blade. With another thrust to the jugular, the lad lay still, and the search party continued with added fervor.
Wow.
What remained of Solomon's strength and sanity left in a rushing surge of panic. His knees buckled, having to hastily prop himself against the wall to avoid the noise of his body crashing to the floor and inevitably alerting the marauder scouts. His bloodshot eyes flickered as his cerebrum once more set aflame with hallucinations. Mina, the temple of flesh and stone, the wide-grinned demon, the half-decapitated giant in the iron mask. The iron mask. The mask. The mask. Solomon knew what needed to be done for him to have at least a slither of a chance at surviving this night. He reached over to the stripped body armor, abandoned next to the broken traitor on the torture wheel, and worked the chest and shoulder plates over his emaciated frame. The stench of caustic sweat from inside the armor turned his gut,
Interesting.
nearly causing him to lose consciousness once again. The filthy armor weighed heavy on his shoulders as he made his way back to the chambers, hastily unbuckling the thick leather straps that held the iron mask on the hanging head of the brute. He felt a pull of resistance as the cherubim visor slid from the pitted head of the traitor, stringy discharge and peels of skin interweaving and gripping onto the iron from within.
Ugh.
He raised the mask to his head and fumbled each buckle, feeling the residue of pus and skin mold like soft wax around his own face as each strap was tightened. Cupping his hands, Solomon scooped dark blood from the floor and smeared it across the exposed cloth of his farm tunic. He caught another reflection of himself in the mirror. Once there stood a man, a cowardly wretch no doubt, but still a man. Now only a demon remained, a demon that wanted to live, a demon that would forsake all humanity to see the sun rise over the red fields of Arvum once more.
Wow. So he dresses like a traitor. He's gonna blend in. Oh, is that all for that one? Wow. Holy shit, if that's not a fucking way to end it, to make a fucking act 2, bro, I don't know what is. Like that was very enthralling from start to finish, I'm not gonna lie. Obviously a very, very brutal story at that, but holy shit, you know what I mean? I enjoyed that quite a bit. Again, wow, like the whole thing, I guess it goes to show just like what a person's willing to do to live, as I guess it described at the end there, right? Like, what are you yourself capable of doing to survive, and what are you willing to sacrifice to do so, and is it worth living at the end of it, assuming you even do live, right? Like, I think that's the questions you got to ask yourselves with this one, you know what I mean? Like, this was, again, a really, really dark story, obviously. You know, not a lot of humor to be made out of this one, unfortunately. But, you know, I think that's the point. I think it's good to hear stories like this. I think it adds, again, a lot of context just to know what you're dealing with, in the sense of, like, man, if you come across chaos forces, like, the reality is you would probably rather be dead than be captured, you know what I'm saying, than not die. Because then, in a sense, even your death is serving the ruinous powers, which, you know, only strengthens them. So, yeah, this is a brutal fucking story, guys. But yeah, big shout out to Alter Vast for recommending this. I did really enjoy it. I did actually really enjoy this story still, even regardless of how dark it was. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, you know, I'm not shy of those things for sure. So I do like these darker stories too. You know what I'm saying? And again, adds a ton of context. So big shout out to you, Ultravass, over on the Discord for recommending this video. But yeah, guys, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe for more content from me, and leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Come join the Discord, be a part of our discussions, and yeah, come interact with me, interact with everyone else. It's good to see you guys there. So come join that Discord for sure, for sure. Big shout out to our members, all the Hastati, and our Triarii, Paralyzed, Tortoise. Big shout out to you, sir. I appreciate you as always. And yeah, guys, if you, I already said that. Yeah, without any further delay, this has been Centurion, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.